Uhuru, this is Lisa Davis with the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations. We are a part of the Uhuru movement, and as many of you know, that our chairman, Omali Yeshitela, and two other members involved within the Uhuru movement are facing 10 to 15 years in prison, and the trial date starts September 3rd, and part of the issue is freedom of speech, which the United States and under the Biden administration, under the Democrats that were supposed to be the lesser of the evil, don't believe in that at all. And in fact, they attacked the Uhuru movement on July 29th of 2022, and look like they are about to have prayers or whatever. I'm at the CUNY encampment. But I'm with the Black is Back Coalition, and under the leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And I always have to make sure that people know that they are facing 10 to 15 years in prison for speaking out and condemning the United States wars and colonialism and all of that kind of stuff, and condemning their proxy war with Russia, as well as fighting for reparations and the liberations of black people and all oppressed people. But I just wanted to report that I'm at the CUNY encampment. We stand 100% behind these students. We stand 100% in solidarity with everybody who's rising up against this barbaric, savage capitalist system. We stand in complete solidarity with Palestine. Part of our 19-point platform is point number 18 of the 19-point platform for Black self-determination calls for a free Palestine. We also say hands off Africa, hands off the Uhuru movement, colonizers go home, and that we must make this an anti-colonialist struggle, an anti-colonialist movement. And one of the reasons that I was here today, I had come on Saturday, and I'm going to try to come and show up to all of these student struggles, all of the youth movements, all of the demonstrations, but also just standing up on the right side of justice, because we have to change this world. We got to change this world. We cannot continue to do life as we had been doing it. But anyway, I was asked to come to give a teach-in about the Black liberation struggle and student movement, and to lay some words, or to give some words to these youth. And one of the things that I tried to focus on is the importance of getting connected to struggle, being connected to organizations, having a narrative that's going to be truthful in your life, that's going to help you to navigate through this world that is much needed. We cannot continue to do life as we had been doing it. And we have to hold the boomer generation, which is my generation, directly responsible for creating this horror that we currently live in. And when I say that, I'm not talking about being ageist, and I'm not talking about, weaving dissent between generations. I'm not talking about that. But we have to look at the social, political narratives that people adopted. We have to look at the socio-political narratives that the boomer generation adopted, and we have to critique it. We must be critical. We must say, you don't ever want to go that way again. And I know it is unforgivable the way that so many people turned their backs to these wars that had been going on long before. Well, I shouldn't say long before this happened with Palestine, because this is at least 75 years old. But before, I will say this much, long before October 7th. And the response or the relationship that the boomer generation had with U.S. imperialism and colonialism, which was basically capitulating to the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. They did it all the time. They had removed the issue of war, just removed off of the agenda for 20 years straight, at least 20 years straight. People voted for overt warmongers. Didn't matter, Republican or Democrat. That's what they voted for. There were no demands made in terms of stopping these wars. People just basically turned their backs to what was going on internationally. Now, you did have people within the boomer generation who wasn't doing that. So it's not to say all boomers, but we have to look at this critically and analytically. We must do it, and we must take responsibility for what we did. We must take responsibility for that. We're not in this situation because, oh my gosh, it's just, we just happened to stumble into this. No. There was a reason. There is a reason why the United States has been ignoring everything, all the demands people have been making. And that's because they didn't have to listen to people, and people would vote for them anyway. They embraced voting for evil. They developed this philosophy of, oh yeah, you could be anti-war and still vote for pro-war candidates. And it does not just show up in the war. We know that there are wars going on all over Afghanistan, Pakistan, Libya, Somalia, the Sudan. The United States has 800 military bases all throughout the world. And so much of that has to do with the relationship that the boomer generation had to what was going on. And, there are complexities even within that. We can't have a movements based on euphemisms. We can't do that. We need critical, strong, and analytical thinking and action. We must do that. We cannot continue to do life the way we have been doing it. We can't do that. But I just wanted to just talk a little bit about that. Just wanted to at least capture that, yes, we are out here supporting the youth, and just capture a little bit about this encampment at CUNY University. Now, I'm learning a lot of things here about CUNY, at least that CUNY, which stands for the City University of New York, is a university that is quote unquote dedicated to the working class. It's in a working class community. Working class people support it, and I hear that this is very significant. I wasn't familiar with that history of CUNY University. I wasn't familiar with that, but it is City University or whatever, and it's represents the working class struggles, and these are working class people here that have taken over this campus, and they are determined. They are determined to be here. And I hear that the police are saying that they're going to be coming in tomorrow or something like that. I hear that New York wants to, end this. I saw something that sellout Eric Adams is talking about they'll use minimal force or some BS like that. This is about the people. The streets belong to the people. These universities, everything belongs to the people. So anyway, I just wanted to report on that and report out. And yes, I'm at the CUNY encampment in New York City. So just had to come on. And also, if you are not with the Black is Back Coalition, which is a coalition of organizations dedicated to the Black liberation struggle, coalition of organizations of Black people, for Black people, dedicated to the Black liberation struggle, you should be a part of it. You should join. You must join organizations. We must be about building organizations that have the correct politics, the politics of an anti-colonialism. This has got to be about a system. And one of the things that I had said, that I had mentioned, is that I talked about, what happened with these youth movements, or these movements that were started on these college campuses. When we look at the Vietnam War, what happened to all them young people who were standing up talking about the war must end? What happened with all the young people who were standing up talking about divest from South Africa at the time, companies doing business in South Africa with the apartheid regime? And then also what happened about 20 years ago, after the World Trade Center had come down, and there was one of the largest anti-war demonstrations ever in New York City of about 1 million people. Once it was known that the United States was going to be hitting more countries than just Afghanistan, which, by the way, happened on October 7th in 2001, that the United States invaded Afghanistan, a country that had nothing to do with what happened on September 11th. And they never said they wouldn't work with the United States. They asked for the United States to show them proof that Osama bin Laden was behind it, which was a reasonable request. And the United States said, F you, and invaded them anyway. So they got that one off. That happened right after September 11th. But what happened with Iraq afterwards is very, very telling and very revealing in terms of what's going on now, because they had the largest anti-war demonstration ever in New York City. Largest demonstration ever, probably had to be about 1 million people on them streets. I was one of them. I've never been in a crowd of so many people before in my life. And that's when it was evident that the United States was going to be going into more than Afghanistan. But what was not clear was whether or not they would be going to be implementing the draft. And what I thought was an anti-war demonstration turned out to be an anti-draft demonstration, which is quite different than being anti-war. So you had about 1 million people who had showed up in New York City at that time. And you even had people from the fashion industry. I saw signs, Prada, whatever, Dior, we don't want to go to war. That's how many people it pulled out. And then as soon as the United States made it clear they were not going to be implementing the draft, all of that immediately dissipated. I mean, it disappeared. And the anti-war movement, the protests dwindled down to almost nothing. I would go to a protest, there'd be hardly any people there. And then all of the talk about the wars and it just stopped because people in the United States didn't care. They literally did not care. It was all about, they just didn't want their families to be drafted into the war. And they turned their backs. They completely turned their backs. And even people who had claimed to be anti-war, they voted for pro-war candidates. You had not had an anti-war candidate at all. No discussion about an anti-war candidate for at least 20-something years, as the United States just went totally ape shit and invading all these countries. The Black is Back coalition came into existence when Barack Obama came in on the scene. And Chairman Omar Yeshitela and Glenn Ford and some of the other founders of the Black is Back coalition, whom I don't happen to remember their names at that time, but they realized that this was a new front in colonialism, a new front in U.S. imperialism, in which a blackface was going to be used, was going to become the CEO or the head of U.S. imperialism. And they realized that was a dangerous time, and that's how the Black is Back coalition came into existence. So we felt that we had to definitely bring this coalition back into existence based on the radical revolutionary tradition of the Black liberation struggle. But anyway, so you had the complete capitulation that the boomer generation did, and you will find that many people who were part of these, who were young when they were on college campuses, they would become part of movements like anti-war that they did with the Vietnam War and also with divesting from South Africa. And then once they graduated, many of them, at least if you were white, they went into corporate America and got these cushy jobs and all of this kind of stuff, and they just abandoned things. They really did. And I say if you were white because that never really existed for Black people, that we were going to be able to graduate and be caught up and be offered all these wonderful jobs. That did not happen for us. Racism and colonialism was always in effect, but they would change their face a little bit. They would put on different makeup. But what was most important about that is that, but Black people were operating from that narrative. Black people were. I was one of those people who, when I first graduated from the University of Texas, by the way, I was always proud to be Black, always proud, always down by law. You couldn't tell me that I wasn't, but I didn't know what the hell that meant. I didn't know what that meant. What did it mean to be down with being Black if you are operating under colonialism, and that is your operating system. That is your frame of reference. That's how you see the world. That's how you define the world. It really doesn't make that bit of a difference. But anyway, I had graduated from college, had put all this kind of pressure on getting the University of Texas to divest. And when I graduated from college, my attitude was, I have done my part. Now I'm about to go out into this world and become an actress, which is what I was into at that time. And I did my part. I don't need to get involved in anything. Well, I soon learned from that big time when I was victimized by police brutality, although I was not hit, but it was still a very violent encounter. 4 armed white officers telling you they don't want to catch you in their neighborhood again, and I was cursed out and all of that, started by a New Jersey Transit conductor who falsely accused me of theft of fare. Very easily they were able to do it. That was a long story, don't even mean to go off on that tangent. But I learned so much, and I learned from that experience that we didn't have a system. Black people didn't have a system that protected them. We didn't have a system that we could call on if we were in trouble. That didn't exist. It never existed. I should say we didn't have a system by this government. Our system is the Black liberation struggle. And that's where began my passion, the way that I am now, and all the lessons that I had to learn. And I was so happy to encounter the Uhuru movement because they stayed the course. When things got tough, they didn't veer. They stayed the course. I have seen others veer. That was very hurtful to me. And some organizations I left. But the Uhuru movement, I did not. They stayed the course. It doesn't mean that every organization did. Don't get me wrong, but we have to really examine them. We got to really examine things and ask, are you just about words, or are you going to be about, putting the pedal to the metal? What does that mean? What are you going to be about? And it's those kind of organizations that we need, and those kind of organizations that you must be connected to, and especially if you are Black, and certainly, of course, or if you are represent any other oppressed populations. But I just wanted to document this a moment, and Uhuru. I never know how to gracefully exit these lives. Let me see if I do this. Anyway.